The government is working on regulating the country's online gambling market. As it stands, it is legal for Kiwis to gamble on foreign sites, but it is illegal to run an online casino operation from New Zealand. It's going to issue 15 licenses for online casino operators, but they will have to be competed for at auction. Currently, Kiwis spend about $350 million annually on offshore gambling sites. 350 million, which are not subject to local taxes or regulators. The government aims to introduce its licensing system by 2026. However, industry experts warn that major international companies with their massive marketing budgets and established platforms will outcompete the local providers. New Zealand-owned gambling operators like TAB, Lotto, New Zealand worry, and of course Sky City, worry that they will struggle to compete against these well-funded offshore giants. There are also concerns at how the new system will be enforced without strong penalties. Unlicensed operators could continue targeting Kiwi players without contributing to harm prevention programs. So, a lot to kind of unpack there. The Minister for Internal Affairs is Brooke van Velden. She's also the Deputy Leader of the ACT Party, and she joins me now. Brooke, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leah.
Brooke, this is, we knew this was coming. We've been kind of tabling this for a while. Do you expect large offshore gambling companies to win the majority of the 15 licenses auctioned off?
Look, it's really hard to say. I mean, New Zealand doesn't really have an online gambling market, so there's not many people who are domestic providers who'd be available to even compete for the auction, versus, you know, the hundreds of different license holders that exist within the UK and EU and other markets around the world. So look, I think it's pretty likely to expect that people offshore would want to enter the New Zealand market, which is a good thing. If we're going to regulate the market, it's better to have more people competing rather than just have one or two players. But it's possible that that could change over time. The licenses that people can get under auction are available for 3 years with a 5-year right of renewal. But if a New Zealand-based company set up shop under this regulated model and said to DIA, I think I could do it better than someone who's already got a license, there's nothing to stop them wanting to compete and go for that auction down the track.
Do you have any idea, Brooke, this far out, how much, you know, where you start the auction, how much is one of these going to cost? Tens of millions, hundreds of millions? No idea.
No, I mean, if I had a crystal ball, then I probably wouldn't be doing this job. But, you know, something else.
So who would set that? Who sets that, Brooke? Who kind of sets the cost of it?
Yeah, so the reason that we're doing it at auction rather than trying to set a particular fee is because we don't currently know how much people would be willing to pay for a license to play in New Zealand. That's a better system of letting the market decide what that adequate price is through an auction. That's not me as the minister, but through the Department of Internal Affairs, rather than saying, look, it's going to be 1 million, 2 million, 15 million, and then leaving money on the table that could go into the hands to help the regulator regulate that market.
Potentially, though, it's worth a lot of money, isn't it? I mean, you could make $500 million from it. Who knows? Or more,
well, who
or
knows?
less.
I mean, I doubt it's getting close to $500 million. We are a very small market in terms of the online gambling world and the number of people in New Zealand versus other countries that you could play at. But the important thing here when we're trying to create the system is what's the balance between getting, you know, the ability for people to want to have a license rather than trying to restrict so far that you might only have one or two players in the market. We do want competition. That is good for any market. But I think the distinction here between should they be New Zealand, should they be offshore, it's not really one that we should be trying to make because under our international free trade agreements, it's pretty clear that we can't discriminate based on where someone is based. We do need to allow for an open market.
Well, if we look at Lotto and the TAB casinos or the pokies, the successful bidders for the online casino licenses, well, they won't be required to pay any money to community groups, will they? Is that fair?
Well, I think this is not about fairness, but if you're looking at the current system, you know, TAB and Lotto They already have monopolies in their area of the world. We're not changing that. TAB would still be the provider for sports and race betting, Lotto for the online Lotto monopoly. The difference here, I think you talked about Sky City, well, they're in a competitive market rather than the other guys who aren't. When I was looking at this system and trying to think, should there be community benefit or proceeds of gambling going back into the community, what I was struck by is this kind of perverse incentive that we've created in the gambling space, where community have now become dependent on gambling proceeds, and there's an incentive inherent in that to want to increase the amount of gambling that we have so that there is more money then going back into those community projects. And I think that's wrong. I'm not looking to change what happens with Lotto, with TAB, with the Sky City casino proceeds or pokey proceeds going into community. That's not changing. But if we've got the opportunity to look at the online space in an unregulated market, I personally was not comfortable with putting in place an incentive to increase gambling so that more money goes back into sports in our communities.
And look, I get that, but I mean, if I was running pokies, I could say, well, it seems a little unfair that, they say all the money goes into communities. Lotto bangs on about what they pay back to communities, and I'm just saying these new entities that will enter, what do they have to contribute then besides making money? Will they contribute to harm reduction? Will they be responsible for changing gambling efforts? Is there anything they have to do?
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a lot of harm minimisation standards that they'll have to meet, as well as quite a lot of taxation and gaming duties. So if you just step back, what is it that they'd actually need to do above and beyond what we've already got in place? Well, they'd have to pay GST, pay a gaming duty, as well as contribute to a problem gambling levy. If you go above and beyond and start adding more, what we've seen from international evidence is that people pull out of markets if they believe that everything the government has put in place in them is too high a burden. So getting that balance right between, do people actually want to enter the market? Are you asking them too little or too much? And I think we've got that balance right. But also what they would be needing to do is have very strict advertising requirements that DIA would need to sign off on before they can advertise and operate. They need to have age verification standards, making sure that no child or anyone under 18 can gamble. So that's quite a strict verification system that DIA, once again, would need to sign off on, as well as a whole bunch of compliance. And before anyone could even go for auction, DIA needs to be adequately satisfied that they have upheld commercial standards and rules from anywhere in the world that they've had a license in place, even as a casino.
Okay, so that's good. It's not just anyone with deep pockets can roll on in and get themselves a license. There is checks and balances. So they will have to pay GST, the successful winners of a license. Is it a 12% gaming duty?
That's right.
Yeah. So I know National campaigned on gaining significant revenue from online casino operators. They claimed that imposing this gaming duty of 12% would bring in an average of $179 million a year. Is that the kind of money we're going to see? Do you foresee it?
No, I mean, I know that there is kind of two purposes to going down this track of regulating the market. One is under the National Party's tax plan. We've wanted to raise revenue. The second one, which is more from my end, is that I want to minimise gambling harm in a regulated market. But if we look at the numbers that our officials have given us as guidance, they'd say would bring in at the start around $13 million a year. That's not getting anywhere close to these large numbers that we heard of a few years ago.